If you use the word homeless, you're a horrible person. Hello noble ones and welcome to Metatron's Academy, the channel where we explore how to learn languages in the most fun and effective way possible. And apparently the word homeless has now become and deemed to be considered not politically correct. In fact, it's deemed to be offensive, derogatory, toxic even, and therefore it should be removed from usage and you cannot use it anymore. Apparently the substitute that we are allowed to use from now on is the word unhoused or the word houseless. ArchitecturalDigest.com tells us, throughout the country, homelessness is an increasingly pressing and visible matter, and the situation has only become more acute due to the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic. The more reason to stop wasting time and resources with meaningless language censorship. In the mainstream discourse and official statements, homeless has become the standard term for years. More recently, however, activists and housing advocates have begun to use the word unhoused or relatively houseless, even as some governments stick with homeless. I'd like to say even as you stick with homelessness, since at the very beginning of your own article, I don't know, is homelessness okay, but homeless is offensive? The word homeless has become inseparable from a toxic narrative that blames and demonizes people who are unhoused, according to Eve Garrow, homelessness policy analyst and advocate for the American Civil Liberties Union of Southern California. Wait. The word homeless is toxic, says the homelessness policy analyst and advocate for the American Civil Liberties Union of California. Did they forget to update her title? Shouldn't it be houselessness policy analyst and advocate? What the heck? The term is increasingly used in a way where it implies someone is dangerous or devious, she said. As a result, a less charged term is more apt. Okay, where to begin? I think the first thing I'd like to say is the fact that by its very nature, the word homeless is neutral. That doesn't mean, of course, that every person who uses the word homeless uses it in a neutral way. And absolutely some people will say, oh, the homeless, and of course being derogatory in that sense. But that doesn't mean that we should consider the word to be necessarily charged no matter who uses it and no matter what a person who is using it actually think. Because if that were the case, then even the word people, depending on what context it's being used, could be considered, by your own logic, a charged word and in need of a replacement that is more apt. For instance, people are so stupid. I hate people. The word people is neutral. Sometimes it is used in a negative connotation, but that doesn't mean that now the negative version is the only one to exist. With that being said, I'd like to say, by all means, if you don't like the word homeless and you wish not to use it for the rest of your life, absolutely be my guest. Problem with politically correct stuff is that they don't like using it, so you cannot use it ever again. And that's what I take issue with. But let's have a look at the website unhoused.com. Everyone deserves a home. Time Out London, make a purchase on Unhoused and you'll directly help a Londoner living rough this winter. At the top we see the option to click why unhoused, so let's click it. The label of homeless has derogatory connotations. It implies that one is less than, and it undermines self-esteem and progressive change. The use of the term unhoused instead has a profound personal impact upon those in insecure housing situations. It implies that there is a moral and social assumption that everyone should be housed in the first place. Let's unpack this step by step. The very beginning, they say that the word homeless has derogatory connotation that implies that one is less than. Gosh, no it doesn't. You see unhoused.org. If that were the case, if the simple usage of the word less, which is in this case used as a suffix, not as part of comparative language structure, but if that were the case, then something limitless would be offensive, whereas something unlimited would be okay. See, the reality of the fact is that both unlimited and limitless are the same thing. The word limitless doesn't imply that you are less than limit. It doesn't imply, just by the usage of the suffix less, that there is something wrong with having a limit. These are just descriptive words. Talentless is someone without a talent. Accentless is someone who's able to speak, for example, the English language without an accent. Brainless is... Now, there is absolutely no difference between unlimited and limitless. Even more so then, I struggle to understand the difference between homeless and houseless. But I'll get back to that. I'd like to first focus a little bit more about the actual difference and meaning between using the prefix un versus the suffix less. According to Michael Quinion, Word Beginnings and Endings from 2002, less words fall into two main categories. Words where the less form indicates simply without, as for example bottomless, childless, defenseless, and lawless. And words where the less form indicates something that is unaffected by the action of the verb, as for example dauntless, quenchless, relentless, tireless. In contrast, Quinton says, the prefix un usually lends the simple meaning of not to the resulting word. But in some instances, it often has a stronger and less neutral force than just negation. For instance, if you say unkind, it doesn't just mean that the person lacks kindness, it actually means that there is more negativity onto that person, even cruelty. And another dramatic example of that is the word un-American, which doesn't just mean that a person isn't American, there is a lot more negativity to it. So, if any of these two, less and un, would have to be only grammatically examined, then actually the one with un is the one that has more of a predisposition for negativity, not less. Obviously, the prefix un can also be used to reverse meanings like unlock, which is the reverse to lock, but that's not what we are trying to do. I hope. So, at the most basic definition, the difference between words with less and words with un is the difference between words with without and words with not. Without house, not house. They're the same thing. Now, when we look at the actual word unhoused, you'll notice that it sounds kind of weird. And the reason why it sounds weird is because un tends to be more generally used with adjectives. Unlucky. Now, it can be used with verbs, but it's generally never attached to nouns, which is why you can say carless to mean someone without a car, but you cannot say that a person is uncarred. But the one thing that really rubs me wrong is the fact that they are creating a sort of incorrect generalized statement about the suffix less when they say it implies that you are less than someone. No, it implies you didn't pay attention during grammar classes at elementary school. Even when we study deeply the differences between less and un, whereby less generally means without, lacking in, and un typically means just not or the reversal or opposite of some state, the reality is the situation is a lot more nuanced in the sense that the distinction in the spoken vernacular only applies on a case-to-case scenario. For instance, as we were saying, the word limitless and unlimited are the same, but the word stainless and unstained are not the same, whereby stainless means that it cannot be stained, whereas unstained simply means that it hasn't been stained. It doesn't say anything about the ability or inability of being stained. But I believe the reason why this statement holds no water is the fact that even if we were to accept and say, okay, we're not gonna use homeless anymore, let's all use the horrible sounding unhoused. The problem is, give it 3 weeks. The people who did use the word homeless in a toxic way will begin to say the following. The freaking unhoused. Wait, there is an unhoused over there. Just turn right. Give it 3 weeks and that very toxicity that you're talking about, that very same charge that you're talking about, will come back. Particularly if your choice of usage is houseless. I personally find this entire exercise of politically correct lingo to be an entire waste of time. Also because in the majority of cases, even though there are very rare occasions where I can see, yeah, maybe that word is really not nice, it's mostly rude, I wouldn't consider it illegal or send someone to jail or cancel someone's job because of it, but it is rude, so as a decent person, I won't use it. I can see that very occasionally, but in 90% of situations where people who follow political correctness try to change things is mostly because they are offended for absolutely no reason. And even though I'm always a great defender when it comes to the liberty of speaking however you want, so I'm not trying to take their freedom away from thinking something or stop using a word and changing it for another word even if it sounds horrible. Hey, if they want to do it, they can do it. That's fine. And I'm not even going to make fun of them in front of them. Might make fun of them with my friends though. The problem is that of course this is one of those candidate words that you will not be able to use anymore. I'll have to remove from titles, I'll have to add an asterisk to remove one of the vowels, otherwise I will pay the consequences of not conforming to what someone else has decided for me. To that, as someone who loves language, communication and deep linguistic understanding, I say no. Number one, I hope that none of you will ever experience homelessness in your life. Apparently this one can be used. and thank you for joining Metatron's Academy.